Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Nothing could have prepared Genoa City, or the Newman family, for the grisly turn of events that would forever shatter the fragile illusion of safety. The air in Genoa City had been thick with suspicion for weeks, a tension that humming just beneath the surface of every whispered conversation and wary glance. Chance Chancellor, the decorated former detective with a steadfast sense of justice and a target seemingly painted on his back, had been on the trail of Carter for days. The only individual getting close was him. Too near. Carter was aware of it. Now that Carter had eluded the law for years, a ghost who vanished into the shadows, leaving behind blood and chaos, desperation gripped him like a second skin. But Chance, tenacious and sharp-eyed, had begun to connect the dots that others had missed. He saw Carter for who he really was, a clever swindler, a master of deception, and now, without a doubt, a cold-blooded killer. That night, it rained so hard that it made everything feel like it was the end of the world. Chance was following a tip about Carter's hideout at the abandoned Morncliffe estate on the outskirts of town when thunder pounded the sky like an omen. He couldn't wait for help, so he didn't. He knew Carter wouldn't linger. He was unaware that Carter had already made the decision that this would be Chance's last night alive. Shadows twisted like living things against the walls inside the estate, and the rotten floorboards groaned with each careful step. Carter was sitting there. Chance had been enticed there by bait disguised as a break in the case, and he had fed him the clue himself using an anonymous tipster account. The only light he had as he stood by the fireplace was a flickering oil lamp that made grotesque faces on his face. He held the murder weapon, a rusted iron rod stained with the blood of a previous victim, in his hand. He had no idea he was entering his own funeral when Chance kicked open the door and stormed in with a gun drawn. "Don't move!" Chance yelled, his voice firm but tense. With a calm demeanor that was more chilling than a scream, Carter slowly turned and smiled. "Ah, Chance," he said smoothly, stepping away from the hearth. "I've always known you would come after me. However, you were never meant to get this far." In the dim light, the two men were facing each other, one tragedy away. "You're under arrest for multiple counts of murder, including the deaths of Richard Mallory, Leslie Mendez, and..." Carter cut him off with a hollow laugh that reverberated like a final scream. "Do you still believe this to be about justice?" he inquired. "Chance, no. This is how we survive." He lunged after that. The conflict was brutal. The fight ripped through the house like a whirlwind, shattering glass, splitting wood, and pouring rain out of the windows like the heavens were screaming. Chance fought well and was well trained, but Carter fought like he had nothing to lose. A table fell over. Gunshots rang out, deafening in the confined space. One failed. One grazed Carter's arm. But there was never a third. Chance's weapon was thrown out of Chance's hand by Carter, sending it flying into the night. He struck with the rod amid the chaos. Once. Twice. The room was filled with flesh, bone, and pain, a sickening sound. Blood spread across the hardwood floor like a red flower after Chance failed. Carter kicked away his radio when he reached for it, then knelt beside him, his eyes wild, and breathed hard. Carter said, in a whisper, "I didn't want to do this." But his voice showed no regret. "But you forced me to choose." Chance's body became broken, his breath became shallow, and his vision began to fade. But defiant to the end, he kept Carter's gaze fixed on him even as the world vanished. "You'll never get away with this," he rasped. Carter widened his focus. "I already do." Then he disappeared. Through a shattered window, Carter vanished into the night like smoke, leaving behind only blood, devastation, and the broken silence of a man betrayed by his belief in justice. It was hours before anyone found Chance. Amanda had grown anxious when he didn't answer his phone. She had tried to justify it by saying that he was always in danger and that maybe he had lost signal. However, by midnight, anxiety took over. She called Sharon, then Abby, and a search party was set up by 1:30 in the morning. He was found by Kyle first, barely alive, lying in a pool of blood and rain with his badge clutched in his limp hand as if it were a last stand. The ambulance arrived in record time, its sirens sounding like a war cry through the night. Chance appeared to be unlikely to survive the frantic efforts of the paramedics. However, By some miracle, his heart continued to beat. Barely. As word spread, Genoa City erupted in shock and fury. Kane stormed into the hospital first, demanding answers. Amanda broke down at Chance's bedside, holding his hand, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Nick, motivated by guilt and rage, pledged to finish what Chance had started, while Victor gave the order for a private security team to find Carter. However, Carter had left. No fingerprints. No DNA. No trace. He simply left behind yet another body. The subsequent investigation was relentless. Sharon, motivated by her own trauma, offered counseling to victims of the attack, but Sharon herself was aware that therapy could not repair Carter's damage. Nikki made an effort to keep the Newman family together, but soon there were rumors that Carter was working with someone. How did he manage to stay so far ahead of everyone? Could the GCPD contain a mole? There were many theories. Trust fractured. And all the while, Chance lay unconscious in a sterile hospital room, machines keeping him tethered to life, while the world outside mourned a hero not yet gone, and cursed the name of the man who dared to try and silence him. Carter had crossed a line this time. There was no going back. A crime was a crime. Attempting to execute a member of Genoa City's most beloved families? That was war. Also, war was coming. Meanwhile, Carter made his way across state lines, changing identities like most people changed shirts. He shaved his head, burned his clothes, stole a vehicle, and erased himself from every database that could find him. But there was one thing he couldn't change: the way Chance looked at him. Not anxiety. Not harm. However, certainty, the kind that said, "I'll haunt you even in death." Carter tried to forget that look by drinking, but it persisted. He convinced himself that it was required. Survival. Self-defense. But deep down, he knew. He had become exactly what Chance said he was: a killer who enjoyed the power of deciding who lived and who didn't. What now? He was now in hiding. A manhunt followed. A comprehensive operation was launched by the GCPD with assistance from the FBI and private investigators hired by Victor and Amanda. Carter's name flooded the news. His face was plastered across every screen. Some people said he had left the country, while others said he was hiding in plain sight, and the rumors spread like wildfire. No one knew the truth. However, one thing was clear to everyone: Carter must be stopped. And when Chance finally woke up, bruised and battered but alive, the fire in his eyes was brighter than ever. He wasn't just going to arrest Carter. He would put an end to him. The war officially began when Chance's eyes fluttered open in that stark white hospital room. Amanda was asleep in the chair beside him, her hand still wrapped around his like a lifeline, a silent vigil in the darkest hours of their lives. Every heartbeat and breath that the doctors had once feared would never return was being tracked by soft beeping machines. However, neither Amanda nor his son's name appeared in Chance's first word. It was Carter's. A snarl, a remark, or a curse. Carter. In waves of shock and relief, Amanda was jolted awake with wide eyes. "Chance? You're awake? Oh my God, you're alive." She broke down in tears as her voice cracked. While her other hand frantically pressed the nurse call button, she leaned in and brushed the hair from his face. But Chance didn't even hear what she was saying. His brain was already rewinding to the fireplace. The instrument, the blood. His failure. "I let him get away," Chance whispered, his throat dry and voice raw. "I should have waited for backup. I walked into it. I entered it like a complete novice." Even though Amanda gently shushed him, she was aware that her words would not alleviate his burden. By the time the doctors arrived, Chance had already sat up, against their orders, insisting on seeing the police chief. He didn't care about rest. He desired equity. No, he desired retribution. Meanwhile, back in the underworld Carter had slithered into, paranoia began to seep in. No matter how many aliases he used or how many bus stops he disappeared through, he could still feel Chance's gaze burning into the back of his skull. He was aware, deep down, that it wasn't over. Genoa City was no longer safe ground for him. But Carter wasn't finished either. Not by a long shot. Word spread fast, first whispers, then headlines. Chance Chancellor attacked, fights for his life after brutal assault, and prime suspect Carter evades capture, manhunt underway. Nick Newman stood in front of a press conference, issuing a stern warning. Let me be clear, he said, his jaw tight and fury in his eyes. Anyone helping Carter hide will be treated as an accomplice. He is dangerous, armed, and a threat to this entire community. Sharon flanked him, silent but resolute. Her presence was sufficient, and the weight of the trauma she had endured at Carter's hands eliminated the need for her voice. This wasn't about closure anymore. It was about protecting what was left of their lives. In a dimly lit motel room in another state, Carter observed the press conference from a TV screen and a flickering lamp. He didn't flinch when Nick threatened him. He didn't blink when Sharon appeared. He frowned, however, when Amanda appeared on screen with a trembling but unwavering voice. "You think you're safe now?" Amanda said, directly addressing the camera. "You think you won? You failed. Chance is alive, and he's coming for you. All of us are." Carter gritted his teeth. "We'll see," he muttered. "We'll see who wins in the end." Kane Ashby went back to Genoa City, where Chance was slowly getting better, after hearing what had happened. He stormed into the hospital like a man on fire, enraged at himself for not being there, and demanded explanations. He was this close to stopping Carter, Kane growled to Victor during a private conversation in Newman Tower. Then the scumbag nearly killed him now. Victor's face was hard to read. "Carter was underestimated by us. That is on us all. But we won't make that mistake again." Kane, however, wasn't interested in businesslike platitudes. Mistake? Carter murdered people. He just tried to kill Chance. What's next? You think he'll stop? Victor's eyes hardened. No, he won't. Which is why I've already hired someone who doesn't care about red tape. That someone? Damian Rios, a former intelligence agent turned bounty hunter with a reputation for tracking the untrackable. Damian entered the scene with little fanfare and zero patience. He didn't want backstories. He wanted Carter's location and the name of anyone dumb enough to protect him. Within 48 hours, he uncovered Carter's escape route, burner phones, stolen identities, encrypted messages through the dark web. What no one realized, however, was that Carter wasn't just hiding. He was preparing. In a shocking twist, Carter reappeared a few days later, this time not to kill anyone else but to mock. A sealed envelope contained a USB drive that was delivered to the Chancellor residence. One video file was contained within. It showed Carter standing in the shadows in front of what appeared to be a wall of photos, of victims, foes, and targets, with his voice distorted. At the center, Chance. According to the video, Carter stated, "You didn't finish the job. Do you believe that you are secure in your small hospital bed? You are mistaken. I'm not done with you yet. And you won't get back up the next time." Everywhere, the video set off alarms. Amanda was immediately placed under guard. The door to Chance's room was locked. Abby and Devon feared for Dominic's safety. Sharon refused to let Faith go anywhere alone. A rare act that showed how seriously Victor took the threat. Victor tightened his personal security. But the harm didn't just come from outside. Chance was greatly shaken by the video. He had just come out of surgery, and now his recovery was a race against time. He growled, "I'm not hiding behind hospital walls. He followed me. I'm going after him." Chance left the hospital in defiance of Amanda's protests and medical advice. Using his instincts, his old detective files, and a growing rage that no amount of sedatives could quell, he began working directly with Damian. They located a warehouse in Chicago's Southern District after they traced Carter's most recent confirmed sighting. They were both shaken by what they discovered: blueprints, photos, city maps of Genoa. Carter was planning more than just another attack. He was planning a massacre. The war room was in the warehouse. It demonstrated that Carter had been stalking his adversaries for months, and it was lined with monitors, explosives, and surveillance equipment. Lily, Sharon, Nick, Abby, Victoria, too. He had been studying and watching them. Every pattern, every defect. Damian gave Chance a look. Damian said, "He's not running anymore. He's out hunting." Chance clenched his fists. "Then we stop him before he makes a move." However, Carter was always ahead of the curve. While they dissected the warehouse, he was already setting his next trap, this time targeting Kane. A call came through to Kane's burner phone, disguised as a lead. But when Kane got to the meeting place, which was a construction site on the edge of town, he was attacked. Gunfire broke out. Kane ducked behind steel beams, returning fire as he radioed for help. "It's him. Carter. He is present." Although sirens sounded in the distance, Carter had vanished once more, like smoke, by the time reinforcements arrived. He now followed that pattern. Appear. Disappear. Wound. Vanish. It became psychological warfare. Genoa City had the air of a ticking clock. All of it came to a head in a defunct rail yard outside of Genoa City, a location Carter had frequented in the past and Chance feared would be his next stop. He was correct. Carter was waiting. There were no tricks this time. No escape routes. No shadows to hide behind. Just the two of them, face to face, predator and prey. But which was which? "I knew you'd come," Carter said, smirking. "You do always." Chance pulled out his gun. "It will end tonight." Carter extended his arms. "Then let's finish what we started." Like thunder, the gunfire echoed across the tracks and blended in with the actual storm above. The two men clashed again. Fists, fire, rage. Chance, however, was not the same person Carter snuck into. He fought with the fury of every friend and family that Carter had shattered. And this time, it was Carter who went down, shot in the leg, bleeding, snarling. Chance stood over him, breathing hard, gun steady. He stated, "You won't hurt anyone else." Carter laughed bitterly. "Do you think that killing me will accomplish anything? You'll simply become me." Chance didn't pull the trigger. He spoke softly. "I don't need to kill you to win. Instead, you're going to rot in a cell. Alone. Forgotten." And with that, he handcuffed him. When Carter was dragged into the GCPD in chains, the entire town exhaled. The fear subsided for the first time in months. Sharon wept. Nick hugged his sister. Amanda collapsed into Chance's arms. Justice had been done. But scars remained, visible and invisible. The city of Genoa would never be the same. Chance wouldn't either. And though Carter was behind bars, he smiled in his cell. After Carter's arrest, Genoa City felt a tangible sense of relief. Headlines exploded with the news. Carter captured. Chancellor Hero brings fugitive down. Terror ends as Genoa City breathes again. And Chancellor survives near-fatal attack, delivers justice. The town's weeks-long manhunt had come to an abrupt, almost cinematic conclusion. Even though there was a lot of cheering and press conferences, there was still a deeper sense of unease because no one who knew Carter thought the war was over. Carter was kept under constant surveillance in a high-security cell at the GCPD. No guests. There are no calls. No outside contact. He smiled nonetheless in some way. It was the smirk of a man who had calculated every move, even his loss. When Chance visited the station for an official debrief, he requested 5 minutes with Carter. Just 5 minutes, alone. Trusting Chance's judgment, Chief Williams relented after a period of hesitation. Chance's face when he left was different, according to those who were watching from the surveillance camera later. What took place in that room would remain classified. Not enraged, not successful. Simply haunted. Amanda pressed for details, but Chance only said, "He knows something. Something much larger. And he's not done." It was a frightening comment. Carter had already carried out a number of murders, devised elaborate plans, manipulated, terrorized, and almost killed a decorated officer. What could be worse? That was everyone's question. Until the first copycat crime happened. A young couple who resembled Carter's earliest victims was discovered dead in an alley near Chancellor Park. A playing card left behind. Police scrambled to investigate. It wasn't Carter, he was in lockdown. But someone out there was continuing his legacy. And that meant one terrifying thing: Carter had followers. Chance immediately called Damien back into town. "We missed something," he said. Carter didn't act alone. He had help. Someone out there is finishing what he started. Damien gave a grim nod. Or starting something new. Meanwhile, Carter's trial loomed. The DA had built a rock-solid case, stacking charges like bricks: attempted murder, first-degree murder, illegal weapons, resisting arrest, conspiracy, and more. Amanda was asked to testify on Chance's behalf, and she agreed. despite knowing it would reopen every wound. The courtroom had a full house. They all showed up, Sharon, Nick, Lily, Kane, and Abby. To support. To observe. To ensure Carter saw the faces of those he had tried to destroy. Carter entered wearing shackles, but his confidence remained intact. He scanned the room, meeting each stare with cold indifference. He smirked once more as he looked at Amanda. He whispered, barely audible to her, "I see you survived heartbreak." Amanda didn't flinch. She responded with a steely tone, "And you won't survive justice." The prosecution made it clear. Carter had manipulated his way through Genoa City, killed innocent people, planted evidence, and nearly killed Chance Chancellor in cold blood. He had also targeted families and planted evidence. Chance's testimony was powerful because it was honest, moving, and unflinching. He described the attack, the struggle, the moment he knew Carter wanted him dead. He recounted the aftermath, the video threat, the final confrontation in the rail yard. But then Carter's defense dropped a bombshell. They claimed Carter had a psychological disorder, that his past, riddled with trauma and abandonment, had left him mentally unstable. That he wasn't a monster, but a damaged man. Amanda opposed. The DA also did so. Indignation filled the courtroom. However, Carter merely sat there and took in the chaos with sparkling eyes. The jury didn't buy it. After weeks of proceedings, they returned with a unanimous verdict, guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole.